welcome again to United Astronomy Clubs of New Jersey, otherwise known as UACNJ. Very happy tonight to welcome everyone in on both our YouTube and Twitch feeds. And also joining us tonight is also Nerduino's Twitch chat. Hi everyone. Uh, we are in our winter season right now, which of course means our content is online only. We are very much looking forward to reopening the gates on our physical observatory and having people be able to look through our scopes come April. We have a few upgrades that we're hoping will get done to some of the site before then. More information on that will come uh, later, though, as we get that set up. So I do want to welcome everyone in and encourage everyone to check us out on our website. That's uacnj.org. It's where you're going to find a list of not only all our upcoming talks and our past presentations with links to those, but also links to all of our member clubs, because we're actually a club made up of many other astronomy clubs with our shared goal of being able to share our love of space, astronomy, and science with as many people as we can. And what better way to actually get involved in astronomy than to join your local club? Because let's face it, the tips and tricks I know out in Hope, New Jersey, might not be as helpful when you're in a more light polluted sky, such as New York City, or even if you go a couple hours out west into Pennsylvania to even darker skies. I know I would get lost because there were just too many stars as compared to what I'm used to. I also want to encourage everyone to look us up on our social media and follow us there, our Facebook, Instagram. We have a Discord server. All of those are great places to not only ask questions or even just share your images, but also see what we're up to and any special events we might have. As always, we are a nonprofit organization, a 501c3. So everything you see here, while it is a free program, is supported by people just like you who have donated. And I do want to thank everyone, especially over this holiday season, who has donated to us and allowed us to continue offering these free public outreach programs. With that, you're not here to listen to me yammer on for forever. You're actually here to hear about Dr. Ian O'Dwyer, uh, also known as Nerduino. Uh, he has a Bachelor's of Engineering in Business from the University of Cambridge in the UK, a PhD in Astronomy from the University of Illinois, where he did observational astronomy and cosmology, and he worked at NASA JPL for about a decade in science and engineering, currently living in Los Angeles, doing science outreach and education, a content creator, a dad, and a business owner. And with that, here's Nerduino.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the great intro. Guys, thanks for inviting me to give the talk as well. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's amazing. I think astronomy clubs are really important, and they're a great source of knowledge, of local knowledge especially. But in this case, we get to spread the knowledge all around on the internet, which is fantastic as well. And we'll be talking about that later in the talk. Let me see. It's not letting me advance my slides. There we go. Okay, so here's a quick overview of what I'm going to talk about. I'll give you a quick biographical sketch here in a second. We'll talk about a little bit about my background, where I grew up. We'll talk about grad school, the work I did in grad school, some of the research I did. Then we'll talk about my transition to NASA, where I worked at JPL for about 10 years. Some of the projects that I worked on there. And then we'll finally finish up with how I ended up doing education and outreach on Twitch and YouTube and getting involved in science advocacy. And hopefully, it's going to be a little bit of a journey, but also there's going to be some science in here as well. There's going to be some astronomy to keep you interested. So here's a quick bio sketch. I mean, we literally just went through this. University of Cambridge, I have a bachelor's in engineering and business. I have a PhD and a master's in astronomy from the University of Illinois. And as I said, I worked at JPL, and now I currently live in LA, in beautiful sunny California, where we have clear skies currently. I'm English, if you can tell by the accent. My accent's a little bit messed up. I've lived in the US for, oh gosh, 26 years now. But I was born in Great Yarmouth in East Anglia in the UK. It's just that little point you can see on the very easterly tip. It's like an orange dot on the easterly tip of the map there. That's where I was born and grew up. My dad was a firefighter, which is cool, right? So it's cool to have dad has a cool job, but it did mean that we moved around a lot. We lived in a lot of different houses as he was promoted up the ranks. There was less and less jobs, local jobs. He had to move further. So I did attend five different schools during school, which is very different to some people's experience and also less than some others. And I went to high school in a place called Leatherhead in Surrey, which is kind of a funny name now I think about it. I had amazing teachers. So if you don't know the UK education system, at least back then, you basically did O levels at age 16, and you would take maybe like 9 subjects at O level. And then some people would leave school at 16 if they were going to go and like be a tradesperson, for example. They didn't want to go to university. Then you would stay if you wanted to go to university and do what were called A levels. And you typically just did 3 subjects for A levels. And I was definitely a science kid. I did physics, math, and chemistry for my A levels. And the results of those A levels are what are used to decide which university you go to or if you get into a university. Um, I did get into a university. I did well enough to attend the University of Cambridge, which some of you have probably heard of. It was a great experience. I was in Corpus Christi College, so the university has colleges, a bunch of different colleges, and you attend the university, but then you're actually housed in the college, and a lot of your social life and sports and stuff is done through the college. So I was at Corpus Christi. I studied engineering for 2 years, and then I did a final year in business, which was a new program that they had. And the engineering was completely general that I did. So I did everything from materials to electrical and electronics engineering, civil engineering, mechanical, the whole thing. Obviously not in any great detail in any particular area, but it was just a general engineering degree. Finished Cambridge. Probably played a bit too much rugby while I was at Cambridge. I was a pretty avid rugby player and did a lot of sports. And I didn't have a job lined up when I left. I had done some engineering internships during the holidays and stuff. We were encouraged to go take internships with different companies to learn about, like I worked for a civil engineering company we were building roads for a summer. That was kind of cool. But I felt like I wanted to try something different. So I started applying for jobs in the city in finance and ended up picking up a temp job. I think it was hourly. I think it was hourly paid by Goldman Sachs in the London office, working in the foreign exchange desk. Ended up getting into their management training program and ended up working on the trading risk management desk in London. And then they were looking for somebody to go to Tokyo. And now you'll see why that's relevant to my astronomy story here in a sec. But we basically they were looking for someone to go to Tokyo, and I said, sure, that sounds great. I got no ties to the UK right now. Nothing keeping me here. I don't have any kids to worry about or anything. I was single. I took off. I'm like, let's go. So I went to Tokyo, and I lived in Tokyo for 2 years. I worked the office was actually in Tokyo, um, actually in Akasaka Hills. If you know Tokyo, Akasaka Hills is where the office was, just by Roppongi, which is basically where all the foreigners hang out. I got into motorcycles while I was there. I actually learned to ride a motorcycle in Tokyo, in Japan, from a very cool instructor. That will become relevant a little bit later. And I also discovered an astronomy shop in in uh, in Shinjuku, which is an area of Tokyo, and that really changed the whole trajectory of everything that came afterwards. Really, um, Murakami-san ran the shop. He spoke a little English. I spoke some Japanese. We kind of managed to muddle through. Um, and he sold me a 10-inch Meade LX200 back in the day, and I used to use that to image from my balcony of my apartment in Tokyo on the 21st floor. I think I was. It was high up there. Uh, and I also used to take trips. So these guys, this Japanese astronomy club, effectively, they were super into. And remember, this was like the late '90s. This was like 1998, probably. They had laptops and generators and CCD cameras, and they had cooking equipment, and they used to go to Mount Fuji. There's like the fifth station on Mount Fuji is a big parking lot, and they used to go up there and they used to do astrophotography from the Gogome from the fifth station, and it was great. They used to take me with them. I don't know why, but they used to just take me along on these trips, and it was fantastic. And I really loved those trips. And during that same time, I got into some electronics and stuff. The Starlight Express camera that I had, I got later. I wanted to build myself a CCD camera, and there was a book, some of you may know. It was called the CC Camera Cookbook, and it gave you instructions for building your own CCD camera. It was a cool CCD camera with like a water cooling system. It was crazy, but there's an area in Tokyo called Akihabara, which is just all electronics, and they have markets where you can just buy resistors and capacitors and power supplies, anything you need. And so I went through this book and I essentially built this camera, and it worked. It did work, and I think that actually helped me get a job at JPL later. So that was kind of interesting. Um, During this time, I got really into the astronomy, as you can probably tell. It was an amazing experience, and I was looking for more of a like of an intellectual challenge, I guess, during that period. And I was thinking about trying to go back to grad school. I was thinking maybe a master's in astronomy. Had taken some correspondence courses, and through the motorcycling, I used to go riding on the weekend with some friends, some Japanese nationals and some foreigners. We used to go ride together. We'd go through the countryside, have a great time. One of those guys was an architect, and his friend was a professor at University of California, San Diego in astronomy. And he was doing a sabbatical in Tokyo. So I like went out for a drink with him and I started quizzing him. Did he think that I would be able to get into a grad school in the US? Was it realistic? Was I ever gonna like was it just a pipe dream? And he really encouraged me to apply. He said, you just have to take the GRE, which is like the standardized test, and get a decent score. And I think someone will take you. And I applied to about 10 different places, and the University of Illinois had a place. They said if you get this score on the GRE, you can come. And so that was it. I packed my bags in Tokyo, and I headed to the Midwest, to the cornfields of Illinois, which was a bit of a culture shock. I'm not going to lie. Um, Grad school was great. The astronomy department in Illinois is really good. It's for its size, they have a lot of really good professors. But I will admit, I had a pretty rough start. Like I hadn't done any serious math for 5 years, right? I'd been working in finance for 5 years, doing different kinds of things. No physics. I didn't have a huge background in physics, so essentially I was playing catch up. And it turns out there's a lot of math, there's a lot of physics. I kind of did manage to catch up. The first 18 months was essentially me just playing catch up. And a lot of the time, not like I was behind where I needed to be in catching up. Um, I did manage to pass the qualifying exams on the second attempt. So you had to take a physics qualifying exam and an astronomy qualifying exam to continue in the program. And you had three tries. And I'm not going to tell you what I got in the physics qualifying exam the first time, but it was less than 10%. uh, and so I studied really hard for the next year. And I honestly wasn't sure if I was going to make it. I kind of decided, look, I'll give the quals another go. I'll work really hard. I'll study really hard. And if I don't pass or get really close to passing on the second try, maybe this is a mistake and I should just go do something else. But I did. I worked really hard, and I did manage to pass both quals the second time around. So took the pressure off that because that's kind of a big deal. But now I have to find some research to do, right? Everyone's like, okay, catch up, spend a couple of years catching up, but now I got to start doing some research. I got to find a professor that's going to take me under their wing. And the first research area that I worked in was actually X-ray emission from white dwarf stars. So there was a professor who did observational astronomy called Professor Chu. She was great, and she had this project. And what we were doing was looking at ROSAT data. So ROSAT was an X-ray satellite, and we had a white dwarf survey, and we found that there were white dwarf stars in the ROSAT data that had hard X-ray emission. That means high energy, more than like a half a keV emission in the X-ray, that didn't have a known companion. And so this is kind of interesting. Right now, we're like, oh, have we just found a way of detecting a bunch of unknown companions of white dwarf stars? And if we have, Could those white dwarf stars be a major component of dark matter? Could they actually be a significant, like, maybe not, they're not all of dark matter, obviously, but are they a few percent of the dark matter that we're missing? Because we don't know what it is. So it was a really cool project. I mean, I had a great time with it. It was a lot of writing code. I got to learn Orc and a bunch of other scripting languages and stuff that I had never had experience with. I worked with a really cool postdoc who was helpful. And the biggest thing was I got to get my first observational astronomy experience. So I got to use the 40-inch telescope at Mount Laguna, which is a facility just outside of San Diego that's run by University of Illinois and San Diego State University together. And that was really cool. I used to sleep in there was a big concrete bunker basically that was like the bedrooms in the dorm, and it was all blacked out, so you slept all day. And then you just did astronomy all night. And it was great. And we got more data, and I have a couple of first author papers, I think, from this work that I did. I do have I thought we'd watch a quick video about because you probably haven't heard of Mount Laguna Observatory, but it's really cool. So the telescope that you see in the middle, the older looking telescope, is the one that I use. This first one is newer than when I was there, and it's not good. There we go. Hopefully you can hear the audio.
Mount Laguna Observatory is a research facility dedicated to astronomy. So we are here to make discoveries in the universe. And we also have an education and public outreach emphasis. So we have programs for bringing
Whoa, what happened?
in students from SDSU and occasionally the public as well. We're very lucky at SDSU to have our own observatory, so it's very unique institutions. Not many institutions have their own observatory. So this allows us to give our students hands-on training. They can actually come to the observatory, they can touch the telescope, they can push the button to make it move, to take the data. So they get the full experience, from the ground up on how telescopes work, what the pitfalls are, everything. Our students are given great opportunities to learn how to do research from the ground up.
So yeah, it's a great facility, and it was a great opportunity for us to go out there and learn observational astronomy. So that was really cool. Oh, let me see. Why is it not letting me? Okay, sorry about that. So after this time in the summer, it wasn't clear where the project was going to go. Like as a PhD research project, it wasn't clear how that was going to turn out. And I took in the summers, we could work for professors who were looking for some help, right? They had assistantships, they had a few bucks, they could pay you for the summer and you could go work for them. And I worked on some computational astrophysics, and I was like, oh, this is actually really cool. I'd always been into computers. I had a Commodore 64, made the little sprites that went across the screen and coded in BASIC and all that stuff. And I was kind of enjoying the coding side of what I've been doing. And then a new professor came to the University of Illinois, Professor Ben Wandel, who is an incredibly talented astrophysicist. And he came to the University of Illinois as a joint appointment between astronomy and physics. And I really liked him. He seemed to like me. I don't know why. He's like, yeah, you can come work for me. That's fine. Let's go. And so I moved from the observational astronomy into computational cosmology. And I was working on the cosmic microwave background. And we'll get into what the cosmic microwave background is in a couple of minutes. But I worked on an experiment called BEAST. I worked on the ESA Planck mission. And then what we were doing was calculating power spectra and foregrounds. And we'll talk about what that is. So I would say I probably did that for about 4 years. So I was there for about two and a half years. Maybe I did cosmology for about 3.5 years while I was in grad school. If you're wondering whether we got on, this is Professor Wandel right here. He's the officiant at our wedding. So he flew from France. He was working in France at the time. He flew from France, and he was the officiant at our wedding for the day. So that was really special. So the CMB, Cosmic Microwave Background, what is it? How is it discovered? And why is it useful? So it's the afterglow from the Big Bang. It's relic radiation from about 380,000 years after the Big Bang. And this is the first time that the universe had become transparent to photons of light. Before then, they'd all been bouncing around inside this plasma. They couldn't escape to travel in a straight line, basically. So after 380,000 years, they finally started to do that. And now we observe that surface of last scattering, as it's called, we observe those at microwave wavelengths, so it's the cosmic microwave background. When the radiation was emitted, it would have been at about 3,000 Kelvin. Today, we see it at about 2.73 Kelvin, and it's a perfect, almost perfect black body. Which is the black body radiation is just the radiation that a body emits due to its temperature, purely due to its temperature. It was discovered accidentally, or in science we say serendipitously, but it basically means the same thing, in 1965. With the antenna that you can see at the top of the slide here, that's the Holmdel Horn antenna in New Jersey, which was actually just saved a few months ago, maybe a year ago, from it was going to be scrapped and moved and developed. They were working, I think they were at Bell Labs, and they were doing another experiment. They needed to measure some microwave signals that were bouncing off a balloon. Now they would use a satellite, but then they were using a balloon. And they kept noticing this noise in their measurement. And they're like, man, we can't figure out what this noise is. They like pointed the dish at a city and thought that maybe it was the city. No, didn't. The noise was still there. It didn't get better, didn't get worse. They cleaned the pigeons out of this thing. There was birds nesting in there. That wasn't the problem. And then it dawned on them that actually maybe this could be a signal that was all across the sky. And Dickey and Peebles and Wilkinson have been working on this theory about this cosmic microwave background that we should be able to observe. And Penzias and Wilson heard about the research, talked to Dickey, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you've found it. Like this is the cosmic microwave background that we've been looking for." So they were a little miffed that they had been scooped. Dickey was a bit miffed that he'd been scooped, and Penzias and Wilson actually got the Nobel Prize. So that's how it was discovered. You never know in science, right? It's always worth doing an experiment, even when and tracking things down. Like they could have just been like, "Oh, never mind. It's just noise. It's fine," but they didn't. They stuck with it, and they actually figured out what was going on. So what we're interested in, the black body radiation at 2.725 is what we expected to find. What we're super interested in from a cosmology point of view are the fluctuations in the background. So those are about like a part in 10 to the 5. And those fluctuations are what can tell us about the origins of the universe, the evolution of the universe, the expansion of the universe, things like that. So we study those anisotropies. People have done ground-based experiments. I'll talk about one that I worked on. People have done there's been 3 space-based experiments, COBE, WMAP, and Planck. And essentially what we do is we measure the variations in the temperature of the CMB, and then we look at the correlations between those temperature variations on different scales. So like you've got a cold spot here, what are the chances that there's a hot spot over here, you know? And obviously the scales get bigger until you've gone essentially to the opposite side of the sky. COBE, you can see here on the left, this was the signal from COBE, very low resolution. Also a Nobel Prize there as well for that work. WMAP was much higher resolution. That came out, I think, just as I was finishing up grad school, like 2004-ish. I can't remember the details of when the data was published, but that was the early 2000s. And then Planck was up until about 2013 or 14. And Planck was much, much higher resolution and had many, many channels. It was an ESA mission. And I worked on the data analysis for that. So this thing here is called the CMB power spectrum. This is how we measure the fluctuations in the CMB on different scales. So this is how much power there is, and the scale on the left is, so you can see at the top, that's 90 degrees basically is the very left, and then the angular scale is getting smaller. So we're getting to smaller and smaller scales. This was the power spectrum that we calculated, and you can see the error bars are getting pretty big as we get to smaller and smaller scales. This was pre-Planck. So this was everything, this was WMAP, and you can see these other experiments, WMAP, ACBAR, Boomerang, CBI, VSA, they were all, other than WMAP, they were all ground-based or balloon-based CMB experiments. This is what Planck did. We'll look at this again later, but this was Planck. So you can see that insane level of accuracy of Planck, or the detail that Planck could see that WMAP and the previous experiments couldn't. Just those error bars are tiny, all the way out to angular scales of 0.07 degrees. So anyway, this is what we're trying to measure. The first experiment that I got to work on for the CMB was called BEAST. So I'm still in grad school. I'm working on computational cosmology. We're looking at those power spectra that we just worked at. Calculating those is quite tricky. There's a lot of things you have to worry about. And so part of my research was to use some methods that had already been developed for power spectrum estimation and apply them to this BEAST telescope, which was a University of California, Santa Barbara experiment up in the White Mountains research station in the Sierra Nevadas. And it was balloon borne. It was designed to be balloon borne and ground based. So the data that we used was ground based. You can see it here in its little roll off roof shed that it had. And it was measuring the larger scales. It couldn't do small scales, and it was a difficult measurement to make using with Beast, but we did do it. It was my first experience with real CMB data, which was way messier. Like theory is theory. That's great. You can do whatever you want with theory. Once someone gives you real data and there's like pieces missing from the time series and there's errors and there's just like data that's just doesn't make any sense. You have to clean it up. It's a whole different experience. And so that was really useful and interesting, and it was a great experience. The team was really fun too. They were a great bunch of people. So this was the power spectrum we got from Beast, the dots, the big dots. So you can see that we're just at the very biggest scales here, and with big error bars. But that's just being a ground-based CMB experiment with low resolution. But we did get the power spectrum, and we got it out before WMAP released their data, which was the big thing because WMAP was going to come out and scoop everybody because we knew their result was going to be better than anything anyone could do from the ground. Okay, so the second part of my thesis, the second part of my research was foregrounds. So you can observe the CMB, but wherever you observe it from, even if you pay 800 million euro and send the Planck satellite to L2, you still have to look out through the galaxy. And looking out through the galaxy means you're looking through a bunch of other microwave signals that interfere and mimic the CMB signals. So there's synchrotron radiation. This is high-energy electrons spiraling in the galactic magnetic field. That's primarily an issue at lower frequencies. There's thermal dust. So this is dust that's heated by stars and other astrophysical mechanisms. That's primarily an issue at higher frequencies. Then you have something called free emission, which are electrons scattering off ions in hot ionized galactic gas. And then there's point sources, right? There's radio galaxies, there's quasars, there's other things that are emitting at microwave frequencies. So all these mimic the CMB. All of them will ruin your data and cause you problems and mean that you have to throw a chunk of it away. This is what some of the foregrounds look like. So at the top left, you can see that's the 30 gigahertz. This is Planck data. You can see the 30 gigahertz channel up there on the top left. That's primarily going to be synchrotron emission. And then you can see like the 857 gigahertz channel down the bottom right is kind of toast. Like that's all thermal emission from dust plus other stuff, but there's a lot of thermal emission in there. And then you can see in the middle, you kind of have these channels that are a little cleaner. But anyway, the second part of my research for my PhD was to figure out how to remove these foregrounds from the data. So what I worked on with my advisor and a couple other people at Illinois was we developed a method for removing those foregrounds using Bayesian statistics and Bayesian inference. It's a method called Gibbs sampling. So like with Bayesian inference, you can incorporate prior knowledge. So if you know things about the foregrounds, you can incorporate those into your model and make your foregrounds more accurate. It's a Markov chain Monte Carlo method. So you do a bunch of simulations. After a while, you end up with your samples approximating the possible foregrounds, and then you can remove them. I don't want to get into more detail than that, but we basically used this method to remove the foregrounds from the Planck data pretty successfully. It is very computationally expensive, though. We were writing parallel code on some of the most powerful supercomputers in the world at the time. This was like early 2000s. So there were machines like Seaborg and some other ones that we used. Now it would probably be less of an issue because there's just so much computing power available. But back then we were really running up against disk access issues and a whole bunch of other kind of fun stuff. Okay, so I had done all this work. I had this method. I hadn't applied it to the Planck data yet, but I had this method for removing foregrounds. We had the BEAST power spectrum that we calculated, and I kind of turned that into a thesis, wrote it up. I disappeared for 3 months, holed up, writing it up, measuring all the margins on the paper with a ruler because your thesis had to be, it was crazy. All the rules. I defended successfully, so it's an oral exam to defend, and then you have to submit your thesis. And I was lucky enough to win a 2-year NRC fellowship. And that is a fully funded position that you can take to any institution. So the NRC pays your salary, and you get to you get to take you get to take a job somewhere. I mean, they have to agree, obviously, to give you a job, but essentially you're free labor. So most places are going to take you. And JPL was going to be the US data center for Planck. So I was like, okay, I'd like to go to JPL. And the JPL people were like, okay, sure. And that was how I ended up at JPL as a postdoc. I thought we'd take a quick look. There's a quick video here, just a couple of minutes on Planck. Let me rewind it. I don't know why these videos are not starting from the beginning, but there we go. So this is just an overview of Planck. Yeah, those are all the maps from the different frequencies. You kind of already saw them. Super interesting experiment, and I was really lucky to get to work on it. Wait, stop. I just want to go to the next slide. There we go. Okay, so the Planck mission it was an Earth-Sun L2. We kind of said that. There was a high-frequency instrument and a low-frequency instrument. If you're interested in the frequencies, those are them. It was 100 to 857 gigahertz at high frequencies and 30 to 70 at low frequencies. It was a massive international team, hundreds of scientists, researchers, and other people working together. I took a lot of trips during that time. We went to Italy and France, which were where the instruments HFI and LFI were being made, and Norway, where there was a bunch of people working on the data analysis as well. Had some super fun trips and just did a lot of actually good work during that time. A lot of good research was done around Planck. This is just like an overview of the foregrounds that we retrieved. So the other thing you can do, right, if you get the foreground, if you can make a map of the foregrounds, now you can use that map to say something about the dust. You can actually use the CMB to tell you something about the dust or the synchrotron or the free or any of those things. And so it's kind of a useful. There were people that went off on that tangent and actually started looking at the foregrounds themselves. That they were interested in the foregrounds, not the CMB. There is the CMB map. It's a thing of beauty. That's Planck. That's Planck's legacy right there. That's the map. And as you can see, a lot of the foregrounds are removed. It looks pretty clean. This is just the temperature fluctuations. And there's the power spectrum. We kind of already looked at it, but that's the power spectrum again. So that was kind of the main thing to come out of that experiment. Okay, so around 2011, the Planck algorithm development was starting to wind down. Funding was drying up. They were making the team smaller. Those of us, they still needed some people to run the codes, but we were essentially at the point where it was time to just do the codes, use them, write the papers. You can imagine writing up the Planck papers with hundreds and hundreds of people. There were teams that were responsible for the power spectrum paper, the foregrounds paper, and then there were sub teams that were responsible for different sections. It was a massive effort. It took forever. The kind of funny thing about that is all of the Planck papers were just alphabetical. So if you wanted to be on one of the papers, you just put your name forward, and you will find a lot of the Planck papers are Ade et al. ADE, because Peter Ade had the alphabetically first name. So usually a first author paper would mean that, you had done most of the work for the research. It was kind of your paper, but in the case of Planck, the teams were just so big that we couldn't do that. So the way it works at JPL is that you are essentially responsible for filling up your dance card. So Planck had been paying 100% of my time up until around 2011, but now I needed to go and find projects of my own to work on to get to pay my salary, right? So I had to find projects that had work that would take me on and pay, like, I don't know, say 50% to work on this project, 50% to work on another project, or 25 here and there. I worked with some people at Caltech on some radio astronomy projects. That was really cool. I worked on ALMA and a bunch of other stuff. I did some R&TD projects. So R&TD money is research and technology development. You can get small amounts of funding, maybe like $50,000, to do a particular piece of technology development. I think we built a correlator with some technology development money. We did all kinds of cool stuff, but it's kind of small, and it doesn't, you have to put a few of those together to make it really work. And so the big things that I worked on were DARE, which was a proposal. I was the JPL the NASA proposal lead for the DARE mission, and I worked on PALS and SMAP as well. So these were more. DARE was astronomy for sure. PALS was more earth science, but still, tangentially related. But I was starting to become a bit of an engineer at that point, which wasn't completely my area of interest, but it was a really cool project to work on. So that DARE, back then, this is like DARE 1.0. It's changed now. They're proposing a satellite. We can talk about that. But the Dark Ages Radio Explorer was a 21 centimeter radio antenna that we were going to put on the lunar far side. So it was a dipole antenna that we were going to deploy remotely on the far side of the moon. And what the moon was going to do for us was block our RFI from the Earth. And so we would have a nice pristine radio environment, and we could do cosmology with this signal. I worked with Jack Burns, who was at UC Boulder. I think he's emeritus now, but he was there. And then we worked with folks at NASA Ames and other people at JPL. And we put together this proposal for a $120 million small Explorer class mission. So I think the small Explorer class is under 150 million or 130, somewhere in there. There's lots of people write proposals to that each year. And the idea was that we would launch this thing, we would land it on the moon and deploy it and operate it all for like $120 million. The proposal was rated highly, but it wasn't recommended for funding in that cycle. So what happened was there were 3 proposals that were rated really highly, and they only had funding for 2. And unfortunately for us, the other 2 were the ones that got funded. I believe the Dark Ages Radio Explorer has now morphed into, like I said, a satellite, potentially a satellite mission, but also there's talk of putting radio antennas into craters on the far side of the moon. If we had, obviously that you need people on the lunar surface to do that for you, because it's kind of hard to do that remotely. And we were just trying to find an inexpensive way to drop a dipole antenna onto the lunar far side. With this, now it's got very, it's like mainstream. There's a lot of talk about this. There's a lot of different proposals. Avi Loeb is involved in some of them. I think Jack Burns is still working on some of this stuff, even though he's emeritus. So yeah, DARE has really morphed since I worked on it, probably 2012 maybe, when I was working on it. So that was the first thing that I was working on. And the second thing that I did that was kind of interesting and cool was work on the PALS radiometer, which was launched on SMAP. So SMAP was the soil moisture active passive probe. It was launched, I think, in 2015. It lasted till about 2018, and it measured soil moisture. So it was like for agriculture and farmers. It would orbit the Earth, and it would take soil moisture measurements, and it could tell you, okay, so it rained 3 days ago. How much moisture is still left in the soil in this location? Or it's raining right now. How much soil is the water retaining? It was a very useful tool, but we had to validate the radiometer. And so we had built a high-speed correlator to do some other work, and I was seconded onto the test flight and the test campaign, which was really cool. Like I said, it was a bit more earth science, less astronomy, but basically we got to go out to the Twin Otter facility. I believe it's in Grand Junction. It's a de Havilland DHC-6, the Twin Otters, and they have a bunch of them, and they kit them out for research, all kinds of research, but astronomy. And you can basically take your equipment over there. We had these racks of computers and all this stuff, and then you go and integrate it into the aircraft. Then we flew up to Winnipeg in Canada, and where a lot of the collaborators on this project were. And then the pilots flew the plane up, and we met up there, and then we did a validation campaign on the estimate on PALS on the radiometer, and we were up there for weeks. I can't remember, like 6 weeks or something. And we would take off in the morning if the weather was right. There was a lot of weather constraints, and so we didn't fly every day. There was a lot of sitting around, but we used to fly up. We'd fly over a lake, so the radiometer would measure the radiation, the moisture of the lake, which you hoped it would tell you was 100%. Then the plane would do this spiral dive thing where it was also it wasn't it was rolling from side to side so that the radiometer would sweep across the lake, across the land, and up to the sky. That wasn't my favorite part of the flight every time, because there was once when that just got to be a bit too much for me and I had to use the bag. But it was only once. But it was all part of the project. And then we would fly over the fields around Winnipeg, and there would be students and faculty from the universities that were collaborating on the project in the fields, and they would be taking soil moisture measurements by hand with hand measurement, and then we could compare that with the radiometer data, and by doing that we could calibrate the radiometer. We knew that it was working. So that was a super cool project. I enjoyed doing that. It was a long time to be away, but it was good. There's a few pictures. This is the only time I got the NASA flight suit. That's me and a guy called Seth, who I worked with, and those are the two pilots on the left, and that's the Twin Otter. That's the aircraft that we had. You can see down the bottom is an open house. We did an open house for all the students and the faculty and everyone else that was working on the project. They came and they got to come and look at the aircraft and sit in the pilot seat and check out what was going on, because all they could see was they would just see us flying overhead. They were down there in the fields working hard, so they were super interested to see that. And then you can see Seth in the aircraft. My seat was like behind him. There was a big rack, and then I was sat back there. So the only way we could communicate was on the headsets. And then you can see some of the fields that we were flying over whilst we were doing the survey work. And that was, I enjoyed that project. It was a lot of fun. So in 2014, I left JPL. I actually left NASA. It was becoming difficult to find astronomy projects to work on. I was kind of becoming an engineer, which was okay. But there were a lot of people at JPL who had PhDs in like electrical engineering or electronics engineering, and I was competing with those people for work, and that was hard because I was an astronomer, and we just had a daughter, so I became a stay-at-home dad for a while, and then I couldn't resist. I went back to finance for a short while as a certified financial professional and a financial advisor, actually helping people with their retirements and things. The pandemic came along in 2020, and that kind of killed that as well. And I was really missing science, but I couldn't figure out if there was a way back, because I kind of left, right? And sometimes once you leave, it wasn't that I burned bridges, it was just that I had left. And sometimes getting back into research, funding is hard enough already. They don't have enough funding for the people who are there already. So trying to come back can be difficult. But I decided I would start doing science education and outreach online on Twitch, which is for those of you that don't know Twitch, it's a streaming platform that most people think is just for gaming. I'm here to tell you that there's a bunch of science that happens on Twitch, some really cool art, some food people, musicians, all kinds of stuff is happening on Twitch, not just the gaming community. So I started a Twitch channel in 2021. And I started doing YouTube Shorts in 2023, in late 2023. So I've been doing that for about 2 years. And the other reason that I wanted to do this was that there was a lot of misinformation around, especially during the pandemic, and I could kind of sense this anti-science bias that was starting as well. And I just decided that I wanted to do something about that, and this was going to be my effort. Let me play my Twitch. Let me play my Twitch channel trailer real quick. It's 60 seconds.
Welcome to my channel, everyone. I go by Nerdwino here on Twitch. I have a PhD in astronomy and I worked at NASA for about a decade. Now I'm passionate about sharing my love of science with everyone here on Twitch. Whether it's watching launches together, reading the latest astronomy papers and articles, or discussing humanity's latest efforts in space exploration, there's something for everyone on
Yeah. So that's the Twitch. That's
One
like the
stream a
blurb.
week we
No,
focus on.
stop. There we go. Okay. So why Twitch? Is a huge potential audience. So Twitch has about there's about 2.3 million people watching Twitch at any one time. Is their statistic? Uh, it's very interactive. So right now I'm live on my Twitch channel. I don't know what they're up to, but chat is in there. They're talking to each other. We can talk about science. They can ask questions. They can ask each other questions. It's very interactive. So the YouTube videos are good, but I feel like they're a good way just to kind of pass information. Whereas Twitch is really a great way to have a two-way conversation with an audience. And that's great. And like I said, it is not just for gaming. It's not just for gaming. There is other communities there. There's a dinosaur paleontologist. Shout out to paleontologizing. There's volcanologists. Volcano Dog. Biologists like Science Streams. There's mathematicians like e to the 2I pi. There's a bunch of physicists. There's chemists. There's anything you can think of. And so it's a great community, and I really enjoy the streaming. Growth can be a bit of a challenge, but it is a great way to connect with people and to try and advocate for a scientific way of approaching things. So what do I stream? I kind of said a little bit about it during the little promo video there, but we look at images from space, right? Those are always a great way to get people jazzed about science and astronomy. That's what got me into astronomy in the first place. That's how I got sucked into all that physics. Astronomy Picture of the Day is a mainstay on our channel. We love looking at those, and we'll follow through the links and see what we'll see what other work those people have done, what equipment they used. We watch launches. If there's a big launch, I'll stream it whenever it is. If there's one that lines up with when I'm streaming, then we'll watch that live on stream. Those are always fun. We talk about the latest research and papers, the latest crisis in cosmology, whatever it is that particular week. The Hubble tension comes back. I also have a small observatory in the backyard, so I can do astrophotography from the backyard. Last night we were actually imaging Comet 3I Atlas. We got to see it live on stream, which was super cool. I didn't think we would, but a 60-second exposure, and we could see the smudge. So that was really spectacular, and that is a great way, I think, of inspiring people. We do an Earth Science and Climate Change stream once a week where we talk about some of the solutions to climate change. We do some space-related video games. I love collabs. We have lots of guests coming up, and we've had lots of guests in the past. We just did a big collab with a bunch of other cool science streamers. And I've done a few IRL streams lately. So we've actually been to two aquariums, the Monterey Bay Aquarium and the Aquarium of the Pacific, which is kind of random, but we talk about the fish and the science and the ocean, and it's just a nice way to connect with people. And we do a lot of conspiracy debunking, 3I Atlas. We have a joke about the sort of the dreadnought, the alien dreadnought, and a bunch of other things. But so we don't do a ton of that. We don't have a lot of that going on. But we do address those things on stream. And then just kind of to finish up a little bit, I wanted just to talk about future plans for the channel. Obviously, I want to grow the audience because the more eyeballs we have on the stream, the more people are being exposed to science and the scientific method, and realizing that scientists are just people and that we're not like in these ivory towers doing research and ignoring everybody, and that we are interested in solutions, and we have a method, right? We have the scientific method, which is what guides us and shows us the way, and so the more people we can get involved in that, the better. Some ways that I'm thinking to do that, citizen science projects. So if you guys know, Zooniverse is really cool. There's a bunch of citizen science for both astronomy and just about every other science, biology, chemistry, geology. There's birding science that you can do, all kinds of things. More collabs with scientists and other interesting people. I have friends who are science journalists. I'm going to be getting them on. I have coming up, I think we have a science cartoonist, someone that does scientific cartoons. They're going to come on and talk. And then more IRL streams. I'd love to go up to the Griffith Observatory, maybe get an inside tour there. We have the Planetary Society down in Pasadena. I want to expand the YouTube channel. And then just the general goal, obviously, is to continue to combat misinformation and advocate for science and the scientific method and scientific ways of thinking. And then a sub goal of all that is to sort of grow the Patreon channel and the Patreon community and try and get a little bit more support to keep the work going. So that's my story. Thank you for listening. I hope it was interesting. I tried to mix a little bit of story with a little bit of science in there as well. The CMB is super interesting. Those are my socials. That's my email address. You can contact me there. If you have questions that you don't want to ask right now or you think about later, feel free to reach out. I'm always available. I'm also on stream Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at 6 p.m. Pacific. So you can always drop by stream and say hi there. And thanks again to the UACNJ.
All right. Thank you so much. That was an excellent talk, and I have been saving a couple questions that I definitely saw that were questions in chat. So we'll do a Q&A now. And let's start it off with the first one, which was, how were the skies in Japan as far as light pollution?
The skies from obviously the apartment in Tokyo was horrendous. I was basically facing Tokyo Tower, if you know Tokyo Tower. But I was just so jazzed that I was doing it anyway. I don't think I realized how bad they were, you know. But once we were like Mount Fuji was absolutely incredible. I mean, just like very, very dark. Once you get out into the countryside of Japan, and this is what I found on the motorcycle, out of the cities, Japan is very rural and very unlight polluted, if that's a word. So yeah, the Tokyo skies were obviously terrible for light pollution, but like out at Mount Fuji, amazing. Yeah. Good question though.
Yep. And Elysium Plain, you don't have to worry about just getting here. We do save these presentations on UAC and Jay's stream. You're in Nerdwino's chat. But if you go over to UAC and Jay's YouTube channel, we're going to have this presentation, so you don't have to worry about the fact that you missed it, because it'll still be there. And let's see, the next one was during the section where you were talking about Holmdel Horn and the cosmic radiation background. The way that one of our viewers said, the way they heard the story was they suspected the pigeon poop might have had some radioactive isotopes.
Yeah, they just did.
Was there any truth in that?
I'm not sure about the radioactive isotopes. They definitely chased out the pigeons, and they were just looking for. You know, it was. They were tearing their hair out, is my understanding. Like they were looking at everything, and they just could not figure it out. Which is not surprising. They were they were never going to get rid of it because they'd found the CMB, which is everywhere on the sky. So it was like they were chasing their tails. But yeah, I mean, I can imagine the frustration because if you aren't thinking along those lines, you just wouldn't realize, right? And I'm sure when they did realize, they were just like, oh no. But as it turned out, they got the Nobel Prize, so it worked out in the end. But yeah, the pigeons, there's definitely stories about the pigeons being shooed out of the horn and stuff. But I'm really glad, I will say, I'm really glad that they saved that horn. I think that was a big win. They were going to turn it into apartments or something, I think, or I can't remember what they were going to do with it, but it was just going to get trashed and be developed. So.
I think there were a couple different plans that kept going back and forth. Right. And if anyone has questions, do feel free to put them in chat. I have been trying to monitor that.
I think they were gently removed.
Was there?
I think the pigeons were relocated. I don't think they were.
Was there ever any confusion with the fact that the observatory you worked at being called Table Mountain, when JPL has another Table Mountain observatory near Wrightwood, California?
It was so the observatory that I went to was Mount Laguna, I guess, not Table Mountain.
People are counting.
So yeah, it was the Mount Laguna Observatory.
He is counting on us. So we'll figure it out.
So I'm not sure about but yes. JPL does have a facility at Table Mountain. That is definitely true.
All right. And a little not related to space or astronomy, but do you still maintain your licenses as a financial advisor?
You know, I did until very recently, but it's actually quite expensive to do that. And I let my Series 7 lapse about 2 years ago. So the CFP thing, I can just do the CE and I can get the CFP thing back. But I'm a lapsed CFP. But yeah, it's expensive. The continuing education is expensive, and the licenses are expensive, and I just wasn't doing the work. So if I ever had to get back into it, I could just take the test again.
Right. And someone had a question for us. Does UACNJ have something in Cleveland, Ohio? And while we do not have a member club in Cleveland, Ohio, we would love if an astronomy club in Cleveland, Ohio wanted to join us. I don't know that we would say no. But there, as far as us having a member club there, no, or facilities, no. But I am 100% certain that if there is not an astronomy club in Cleveland, Ohio, that there is one very much near it. Um, I would always suggest Google Maps is a great astronomy near me. Um, Also, if you check out any of your local colleges, a lot of them have a astronomy or science program and can generally point you in, or your libraries can point you in a uh, firm direction of what that you might be looking for. Uh, and someone supplied Detroit has about a dozen astronomy clubs, so Cleveland probably has several as well. And it's not a stupid question at all. Uh, because you don't know unless you ask. So definitely not a stupid question. And as Miss Art rules, yes, science museums are also a great resource for different programs and
I'm repping
clubs.
the Adler Planetarium here today. If you're in the Chicago area, Adler's great.
Yeah, I have my
Nice.
UACNJ shirt with cancer on the back. Uh, I'm currently wired to my chair, so I will not get up and show that off. But we do have a online merch store, as does Nerdwino, so you should definitely check out both shops, especially since with Christmas coming up. There's nothing like giving the gift of science and astronomy
Exactly.
to your family. All right. Were uh did you have any questions for us, Nerduino?
Um, so
Yes.
yeah, I do actually. Could you tell us a little bit about what programs you have in the once you start in person again in April? What kind of things can people do if they come up to the observatory? And can they just show up, or do they
So
have to
what
like make an
happens
appointment, or?
so April through October, we every Saturday, like I said, April through October, uh we have programs at in Jenny Jump State Forest in Hope, New Jersey, uh where and I don't know if I can pull up our website. But if you go on to uacnj.org, there's directions and whatnot where you can kind of get a feel of where we are. Um, but what happens is gates open at 7:30, 8 o'clock. We have a presentation on science or astronomy topic usually. And following that, as long as the weather smiles down upon us, we usually have stargazing. And on the property, we have 7 different sheds with roll-off roofs, uh, and each houses its own telescope. So depending on what volunteers we have that week, because we are a volunteer-based organization, uh, depends on what telescopes we have open, but we allow people to look through those telescopes. Sometimes we'll have some set up also for astrophotography or electronically assisted photography, which is kind of similar to what you actually do, Nerduino, where you have a camera in your telescope where the eyepiece
Yeah.
normally goes and allows a lot more people to see uh, what goes on. And Like I said, that happens every Saturday. It's free to come up. We do always suggest uh, getting a reservation. They're completely free. If you are paying for tickets to one of our free public programs, tell us about that site so we could get it reported. Uh, I've never heard of someone trying to scam people like that, but you should not be paying for our tickets. That being said, we do accept donations because, like I said, we are a nonprofit and a volunteer organization. So your help does actually make a difference to keeping the bills paid as it is. And yeah, you can find a list of all our telescopes on our website as well because I don't remember all of them because I am not the tech person. I'm the talking head in front of the camera. And someone asked, um, where to go? Sorry. Chat scrolled a bit. Uh, do we require people to dim their lights when we approach up the driveway? No. As much as we enjoy our night vision, we enjoy not getting run over more. So we always say for public nights when we are open, uh, do use your headlights because honestly, the paperwork and whatnot of getting run over or running someone over is just too much. And we're currently sitting at a happy 0 times of that happening, and I'd love to keep it that
Sure.
way. uh, but yes. And the only reason we recommend the reservations is, like Red Dog said, because sometimes there's limited parking. And when we get a celebrity, like Nerduino here, sometimes parking can be fun. Or when we've had a couple of special events, like we were open for a couple different eclipses and whatnot. So, and at that point, we would be like, okay, do you have a reservation? If not, we try and
I
keep the
see.
parking
Okay.
for the people who said, yes, we'll definitely be there.
That's great. Thank you.
But yeah, and then from November through March, which we're in that season now, we are online only because we are located in a state park and getting up the driveway when it's snow covered and ice covered and our parking area is just feet of snow, uh, that's just no fun and
Yeah.
kind of unsafe. And so insurance says no.
And your off season talks are weekly or monthly or
So what happens is the first Saturday of every month, we have our What's Up in the Sky talk, usually given by Lonnie. It's a great overview of what you can find up in the night sky that month. And then usually the third Saturday of the month, we have another live presentation,
yeah.
such as yourself here. And the other two, we generally have been
Oh,
running
okay.
reruns. Um, just because those of us who do these programs occasionally need a weekend
Yeah,
off to work on
totally.
other things like the social media posts and whatnot, because all of us have day jobs in
Yeah.
addition to helping out here. So, uh, yeah, that being said, if we had more people interested in giving programs over the winter, we wouldn't necessarily say no, but it would definitely uh, be a different
Sure, sure.
conversation then.
Great.
And yeah, you should definitely uh, come back to UAC&J if you're like Kennedy and haven't been up there in 15 years. Or even if it's your first time, you should definitely come check us out. Or even hit those follow, like, subscribe on our social media, YouTube, Twitch. All of those help out to not only with us helping spread it, but also with Nerduino. And I see uh, yes, you put your link tree up
Yeah,
there.
that's the best way to find me. Yeah.
If someone wants to exclamation point socials for UACNJ's chat, you'll find UACNJ's link tree there. So, ooh, we're gonna get misadventures in Astro maybe once he makes
Oh,
it
there
up
you
to
go.
Neef.
That sounds great.
Yeah. Are you gonna end up
You never
attending
know.
Neef?
Never say never.
I know it's a bit of a
It
haul
is,
for you.
but so my advisor, so Ben Wandel, the professor who was my advisor, is actually out in Princeton now. He's in that area. He's not actually at Princeton, but yeah. So I might be taking a trip out to come visit him. So maybe I can time it all to coincide.
Yeah. If you happen to be in the area, hit us up. We'll get you a tour of the observatory, and assuming the weather's good, because as anyone who's ever tried to do astronomy ever, uh, as soon as you like, oh yes, I have time and I can go look at this really neat thing, it's like 5 miles
Yeah,
thick
yeah,
of
of course.
clouds or something, or raining. And let's see. Next question was, with all the internet constellations now, is that making Earthside observations more challenging? And it can. Uh, it's definitely contributing to a lot of. Uh, I hate to say problems, but it can be a problem. Um, we have astrophotographers, and they do a lot of, long shots to get those exposure times to get like the deep space objects, and that's part of why we use stacking programs to try and remove some of the artifacts like those satellites going by, and it does get worse. uh and I'm sure, Nerduino, you probably also agree that it can make astrophotography interesting, and I'm sure it makes science a bit hard. uh you have to find a window where you're not going to crash into something while trying to get
Yeah, I
out.
mean, so it's an issue. I mean, for astrophotography, you can kind of remove them, right? It's annoying, but you can get rid of them. But the point is, if you're doing scientific observations, all of your data is valuable, and if you're deleting, you have to delete those pixels from your image that have the satellite trail in. That's data that you no longer have, right? It hasn't just spoiled your amazing astrophotography picture. It's actually potentially, you could be losing 5% of your science data or something. So yeah, it's a huge issue, and it's only going to get worse. Yeah, it's only going to get worse.
And I don't know if it's true that there isn't a place on Earth anymore without light pollution. Uh, I think it's very difficult to get to those places. I think there's that, um, probably if you go to Point Nemo, you're you're in pretty dark skies, would be my guess. It's just, and my tech dude's also like Antarctica, and probably also Antarctica and
Yeah.
the Arctic. I'm like, so yeah, science is fairly close, because they do day trips. And science, if you're in chat, although I doubt you are, I think you're streaming right now. Um, you know, feel free to come out and check out the observatory if we're open. Uh, if we're not, send us a message. Sometimes we can get people up there when we're not open to the public, because we are usually only open to the public on Saturdays unless we have a special event. Uh, that being said, we do reside in a state park, so and we lease state park properties, so you could technically walk up our driveway and see the view off the rock, because there's a giant rock because we're on a mountain, where you can see out over the local
Oh, very nice.
valley. But you can't. But it is a dawn to dusk situation for that. We actually had to get special dispensation from the state to offer the after dark programs. Yes, I know streaming does not stop science from being in multiple chats. As Red Dog put, not all of us are that talented in
Very
multitasking.
true. Yeah, me, I'm certainly not.
All right. Any last minute questions in chat? Uh, just because I don't want to hold you up too long, because I think you still have some amount of streaming and science catch up you were gonna
Yeah,
do tonight.
it'll just be a short wrap up probably after last night's
But
effort on 3i Atlas. Yeah.
I do want to thank you, Nerduino, for an excellent presentation. I do hope you can make it out to New Jersey sometime, or vice versa. Maybe eventually we'll have some money saved up where we could send someone to
That would be great.
TwitchCon and be like,
That would
"Hey,
be great.
observatory." But that's definitely a commitment that we are not quite ready to nail down yet. But we will be at NEAF. So if anyone is going to the Northeast Astronomy Forum in um, Suffern, New York, thank you. um, do feel free. We have a booth there. Like I said, we have all our social media: Facebook, Instagram, Discord server. Uh, Follow us over there. Follow Nerduino there. He does an excellent job of being a science
Thank you.
communicator and offering all sorts of fun science outreach with him. And if you if you're just tuning in, don't worry. You can see this presentation. We do keep it saved over on our YouTube channel. So if you had any questions or think about them after the fact, uh, do just type them in there, and I do peruse them fairly often to make sure we get those answered for you. And it looks like one of our last question was, did you get the comet data stack to show?
I have a quick and dirty here. I can show. Can I do that though?
And thank you, Misadventures, for grabbing the UACNJ link tree.
I just have that quick and dirty that I posted in the Discord server. Do I have a way of throwing that up on stream? Well, I can put it up on my stream for sure. Uh, let me just let me do that, and let me make it bigger, and then let me share the browser. So I'll put it in Twitch chat. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Hold on.
Yeah, there's so many
It's
chat
crazy.
boxes
Here,
open.
this one will work. So here you go. Here's
Oh,
the
and
here is the wait, why is my window? There we go. So there's 3i
I think
Atlas.
he's sharing up.
I think you guys should be able to see it right there in the middle. That's just luminance. So we've still got RGB to stack, and I just didn't. I've been running around like crazy.
Did you wait? Where did you put that link?
I just posted it
Or
in
was it on the
on the
Discord?
Twitch chat. Here I can let me see. I can put a link to the. Uh, how do I? copy link. Okay, here we go. I'll put it in chat for you guys. Give me 1 sec. There you go. There's a link to the Discord post as well. So.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, and as Kennedy said, there is also we're in a state park camping available, and there's more rough campsites, but there are also cabins, so you don't need to rough it quite that much anymore. And oh, here's an excellent question. Do people still use film in astrophotography, or is it almost exclusively digital now?
I mean, I think people do use film for fun, or for fun, but nobody uses it certainly scientifically. I don't think anybody uses film anymore, but they used to. When I was a grad student, we had trays of photographic plates and stuff.
Yeah, I think there is one person who I was trying to convince them to get out their old film setup to see if they could still do film astrophotography now that they've been spoiled by digital astrophotography.
I still have my Olympus
Um,
OM1 with all the focus filters and everything. I could, in theory, do it if I could get film, but it's
Film's
expensive, and you
expensive.
never know what you got until you develop. It's like, I don't know. The instant gratification is hard to resist.
Yeah. Although that being said, that sounds like an excellent like stretch goal to be like, hey, we get this much and I'll dig
Yeah,
out my
that's
old
true.
film
That's true.
camera.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
But that sounds like a great fundraising opportunity. And Red Dog says that doesn't look like an attack alien spacecraft.
That's Red Dog. You
And
can't see it from that angle. The aliens are on the other side. That's what it is.
uh, and while I don't think we found aliens, I do think it's statistically unlikely that we are the only living organisms in the universe.
I would
So,
agree with that.
oh God, glass plate photography. Plate astrophotography would just be.
I've seen some people that do like pinhole photography with the galaxy and stuff. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and that's kind of almost what you do when you make the
Yeah,
solar
yeah.
viewers with the eclipses, is you do pinhole, and those are always fun. But anyhow, I do want to thank everyone for joining us here. Again, thank you, Nadina, so much for this presentation. Uh, we'll so next week we have a rerun, which I forget which rerun I'm rerunning. But we still will be in chat, so if you have any questions, feel free to drop in then. Um, I'll just be working on things like social media posts and whatnot in the background. Um, but and then the week after that, we should be into January and into the new year, and we'll be doing What's Up in the January Sky on that Saturday. So, uh, like I said, if someone oh, I will grab the social media links and post those there. But thank you everyone for joining us. And until next time, clear skies and good.
Bye.